On Croatia's Adriatic coast lies the island of Šolta. It looks like a tropical paradise with its deep, clear blue waters and beautiful bays. The perfect place to swim, fish, and dive in the clear, warm waters. Unfortunately, there is one place that locals try to avoid: Paganica Bay. By many locals, this bay is considered very evil. Below this surface, you will find a simple-looking funnel-shaped entrance to a cave called the Paganica Bay Cave. Although this cave seems attractive to adventurous divers, diving in this mysterious cave has ended in disaster for some people. This terrifying story is about a man who, together with a rescue diver, lost his life in the complex maze of the Paganica Bay Cave. On 10 September 2002, a group of friends went sailing on the Adriatic. They had had some food and drink and decided to stop the boat around 9 p.m. for a swim in the Paganica Bay Cave. Two of the group decided to dive into the water and explore the underwater cave fully equipped. There were 3 more crew members, a captain, and a 31-year-old Czech citizen named M.K. Miroslav remained on the boat. Miroslav also wanted to explore the cave and entered the water with his equipment 15 minutes after the group. He had consumed a modest amount of alcohol on the boat. There was only one person left on the boat, but he was sleeping in the cabin. So Miroslav had no company to dive with him. During his dive, he used a 15-liter air cylinder with a pressure of 200 bars. He was wearing a neoprene suit and on his wrist a dive computer, so he got all the necessary information for a nice and safe dive. Miroslav entered the water around 9:15 p.m. Paganica Bay Cave has a rather complex structure. As shown on the map, the cave has an entrance about 9 meters below the water surface. The mouth of the cave is shaped like a funnel with a width of about 2 meters. The cave runs 15 meters deep below the water surface to a point where it forms a connection between the 2 galleries. The cave branches into a shallow gallery and a deep gallery. Although not indicated on the map, each of these galleries has a labyrinth of tunnels, which can further complicate the cave. You can easily get lost through these winding paths. The inside of the cave is covered with fine silt. The silt consists of dust and sand and covers the bottom of these underwater caves. Divers must be careful with the silt to avoid obstructing their visibility. Miroslav reached the fork of the cave and decided to enter the deep gallery that went down to 57 meters deep. At the water surface, Paganica Bay has a lovely temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, but at the bottom of the pitch-black chamber, the temperature drops to 14 degrees Celsius. After diving 50 meters deep, he decided to go straight up, first back to the roof of the chamber, and then to the corridor leading outside. This is where it all went horribly wrong. Miroslav had taken the wrong turn. He went into the shallow gallery instead of the exit funnel. According to divers who know the cave well, the exit of the deep gallery and the entrance of the shallow gallery look like the exit funnel. Around 10:30 p.m., when 2 divers left the cave and returned to their boat, Miroslav was not there. They knew that something went wrong when he did not return to the boat at 10:45 p.m. 2 divers dived to the underwater cave to find him. They searched for more than an hour, but this search was in vain. Based on the amount of air he had taken, he would already be completely out of air. They decided to inform the police in the nearby city of Split, Croatia, about the incident. Later that night, 2 police rescue divers arrived and dived into the water in search of Miroslav in the Paganica Bay Cave. The divers were attached to each other with a line so they would not get lost. They had dived to the entrance at 9 meters and entered the dark tunnel. Suddenly, one of the rescue divers let go of his line and got lost. The other was lucky enough to find his way back to the cave entrance after nearly running out of air. Because he was panicked and low on air, he skipped his decompression stops. As a result, he suffered from severe decompression sickness. The other rescue diver probably suffered the same fate as Miroslav. He got stuck in the shallow gallery, thinking it was the entrance to the cave, and drowned after his gas ran out. The next day, rescue divers entered the Paganica Bay Cave again. In the shallow part of the cave at 24 meters, they found the lifeless body of the rescue diver. It is believed that when the rescue diver lost his way in the cave, he tried to go through what looked like the mouth of the maze, but became entangled around the roof of the shallow cave. His diving equipment was still intact, but his body showed signs of drowning. The shallow gallery had been thoroughly searched for Miroslav's body, but unfortunately, they could not find him yet. They had to dive deeper and dove into the deep gallery. Finally, they found his body at 54 meters at the bottom of the cave. His diving mask was off his head, his breathing apparatus was out of his mouth, and he was still fully rested. This tragedy was made even worse when they found him with a knife in his chest. When they tried to remove him from his equipment, the knife was accidentally removed from his chest and his dive computer fell off his arm. This was eventually recovered and brought to the surface. The question for the forensic experts was whether this death was the result of a homicide or suicidal action. Everything was collected for the forensic investigation. The area was labeled a crime scene, and thorough investigations were carried out. The victim's belongings were recovered and sent for tests. A suspicious red stain had also been found on the boat. This sample was also examined and sent to the laboratory for testing. The crew had to take a lie detector test. They all passed the test, except 2 of them, who responded to the words knife and blood. These 2 crew members were taken into custody, but no formal charges had been filed. The rest of the group was released, but not allowed to leave the country while investigations continued. They had to wait for all the investigation results. Besides the results of the stain analysis, the diving equipment and dive computer were also analyzed and tested. This was because they had to make sure this had not been sabotaged. The analysis later showed that the dive computer worked perfectly. The maximum depth, total decompression time, total ascent time, and total dive time were all good. Miroslav's body was examined. It was seen that the knife was about 11 centimeters, the same depth as the stab wound, and it had sharp edges. The knife went through Miroslav's neoprene suit, his skin, chest muscles, and his left lung. There was liquid and congealed blood in his lungs. His lungs showed a foaming liquid, indicating respiratory problems around the time of death. This is a typical death by drowning. Further investigation revealed that Miroslav had dived to the deepest part of the cave. As an amateur diver, he should have never done this. According to reports, his descent into the deep gallery was smooth, and he reached the bottom where the temperature of the water was about 14 degrees Celsius. He quickly ascended the tunnel and then reached the branching area. At this point, he missed the exit and got stuck in the shallow part of the cave. According to some reports, he spent up to 35 minutes finding his way out. Since he was an amateur diver, he may have also disturbed the fine crevice in the cave, causing dust and sand to float in the water and obstruct visibility. This is called the Tyndall phenomenon. Police then investigated several possibilities about the circumstances of his death. Footage of his diving equipment showed that Miroslav left the shallow gallery and probably rested briefly around the roof of the deep gallery, where he found an air bubble trapped under a rock. However, the bubble could not provide him with the oxygen he needed. He began to lose his buoyancy due to nitrogen narcosis and the slight influence of alcohol. His blood alcohol level was 0.114. For reference, the legal limit for driving is 0.08. It is also speculated that in his diminished mental state, Miroslav had realized that he was running out of air and most likely would not reach the mouth of the cave. He grabbed his knife and stabbed himself to avoid the agony of drowning in the depths of the cave. He died just 2 minutes after the stab, and his body sank to the bottom of the cave. Some analyses suggested that the victim's death was the result of premeditated homicide. Miroslav was allegedly stabbed on the boat and then thrown into the water to cover up the crime. The suspect may have attached a rope to the camera to record a false descent into the cave and loss of direction to cover up a death by drowning. This theory was rejected because a perfect initial descent of the camera would have been impossible as the suspected assassin did not navigate through the water. Another thought was that Miroslav got into an argument with one of the rescue divers on the roof of the deep gallery. Perhaps he was trying to remove their gas tank to save himself when he realized he had run out of air. The other diver may have stabbed the victim in defense and then escaped. If this were true, 2 divers would be suspects. However, this was refuted because there was no evidence of a struggle with a knife on his arms and hands. Besides, one of the suspects started his descent around 10:46 p.m. By then, Miroslav was dead. The dive computer also showed that the other suspect had not descended below 9 meters. Another thought to consider was whether Miroslav's homicide had found a relatively simple way to take his life. For example, by manually emptying the victim's tank using the flush button. This could have served as evidence of actual drowning, and an object such as a knife would not have been necessary. Some military divers disagreed that Miroslav's death was the result of a suicidal action. Their argument was that a suicidal action was rare in such a situation, since any diver would do everything in his power to save himself. Although a suicidal action is extremely rare in this case, it is still not impossible. Unfortunately, we will never know exactly how he came to the end of his life. What we do know is that the locals of Paganica Bay consider this bay very evil. Thank you if you followed this whole story. If you liked this video, please don't hesitate to hit the like button and comment below. If you are interested in more stories, please click on the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you will be notified when another video is posted. Until next time, take care.